Yeah, it's good afternoon. It's just gone good afternoon. May as well just get started there, I think. I'll start by giving you a quick overview of the agenda, and then I'll introduce you to the course director. So I'm not going to read it all out, but the plan is before the break in the middle, we'll focus on Route A, which is the technical project, and then we're going to look more at Route B, which is the 4 questions in the second half. And in the middle, we'll have an icebreaker, and you can get to kind of mingle and ask us all questions as well. And then we're aiming to finish up by 2, but I'd say it could be a bit earlier, so we'll see how it goes. And so I'd like now to hand over to course director Chris Sexton.
How you doing? Is that working? I don't normally need a mic, but I'm too loud. This is who I am. I'm course director for ISE. The first thing I'd say is one of the nice opportunities about being here is you get to ask questions, right? So, and it makes the talk a lot more interesting too. So, whenever I'll tell you a little bit about the course, and a little bit about what makes the course different, and you probably have read some of that online as well. Please feel free just to put up your hand and ask any questions you want. Okay, I'm happy to be interrupted. It's not an interruption at all, right? So, I don't know how much of you read about ISE. ISE is quite a new course. Our first, so it takes 4 years to get to a master's, and our first master's students will graduate now this summer. So we've just gone through one whole cohort. We started with 25 students. The next year we took 40, and now we take about 50. It's a little bit pushed over 50 each year, and we probably tend to stay at around, I suppose, 55 ongoing. There's a few things that make the course different to a normal computing course. Probably the first one is that you spend about half your time in what we call residencies. So these are industry partners that are signed with us. There's a list on the web page, there's about 60 of them now, ever growing. It's one of Ian's main jobs is looking after the residency partners. And you go into industry every year in ISE. So if you go to do the masters, at the end of first year, you'll go into industry. In second year, you go into industry, third year, and fourth year. So half the time is that they join us, loads of seats. Half the time on your course is spent in industry. The other thing that's different about the course, is that we don't teach in a lecture lab environment. So a typical computer science degree, you have lectures, and usually bigger lecture halls than this. There might be 100 or 200 students. And then you go into a lab, and you have a lab assistant, or that might take you through exercises. In ISE, it's all in the same room. And it's called a studio-based environment. You sit there, tend not to have lines of tables, but sort of islands of tables. You work in groups usually. You work off your own laptops. And there's no real disconnection between somebody talking to some slides and you doing an exercise. So normally I might have slides of me talking about some concept, and then I'll immediately turn around and say, okay, start an exercise. And you don't move. And the lecturers rotate in and out of that room. So first years will always be in the same room. The other thing is the timetable is quite different. Those residencies would normally happen in the summer period. So for any students that like the idea of long, stretched out periods over the summer, it's probably the wrong course for you, okay? Because when you get to that summer period in first year, you'll go in. We'll find you the residency, it's fully paid, but you'll actually go into a company. And when summer finishes, or even a bit past it, you'll come back into course. You'll get about 6 weeks off a year, but between residencies and coursework, you'll have about 6 weeks holidays a year. Okay, so it's intense from that point of view. Okay, so I want to say that up front because I want students to understand that before they go on the course. Okay, and most students that are on the course would sometimes say, that's great, we were planning to work anyway over the summer, somebody's going to find me a pretty well-paid job that's going to relate to my course, and they see that as a bonus, but it's important you know that. There's a lot of other things, I suppose, that I'm not touching on that are part aspect of the course. I mean, because the timetable is different, we also teach longer. So when you come back after Christmas, you'll come back 2 weeks before the other students, and when the other students have left for the summer, you'll still be here for another 3 or 4 weeks. Okay, so we have blocks. We don't have modules. What that means is you do a single block over a period of time. You might have 2, 3, or 4 different lecturers doing different majors and minors in that block, but that's one coherent block. And those lecturers will meet every week to discuss that block. Okay. In a normal system, you might have 5 modules, and they might be relating to different courses. So for an ISE student, you're always in the same class with the same students all the time. Okay. That group you start the first year with, you will go all the way through, and you will nearly never find yourself in another lecture hall with other students, or because of the timetable differences, you'll rarely find other students coming into your course. That's good from a teaching point of view in one way, in that by 3rd year I know everything every student's done in 2nd year and 1st year. I don't have any students coming in, from other courses that have a different background. But it's a very different vibe for the course. So a year group are become very tight. The environment, if you haven't been to it, and you can come to it on an open day if you get a chance, we've sort of set it up a bit like a Google environment. So there's, because it's our space, we have a place to make coffee, students can come in for breakfast. But so the environment is also very different. Any questions so far? No? Okay. And of course, what you're sort of here for today is another difference. We of course use CAO and the normal leaving cert as one as part of our entry, but the other part is we have a separate commitment that you have to do and plan for, and we're going to talk about that in detail. So these are all aspects. Come down. There's loads of seats. It's a funny seating arrangement here. I was just saying it to Ian before he got in, because when you arrive late, you've got to walk all the way down to the front to get to the seating. So it's okay.
We know who's late then.
Yeah. Any questions so far? There must be some. Nobody's got any questions about anything? Okay. I would be on top of you if I was in ISE and my students now. I would start to be thinking, I like questions, okay, and I would encourage people to ask them. But I think I've covered most of the differences, most of the things that make ISE unique. Today you'll get to talk to some of the students that are on the course. On open days, if you want to come, I don't know if there's any open days. I think that period's all finished now, isn't it? So, but
We can update and inform you anyway if there is one coming up.
yeah. So take your chance to talk to the students as well. Ask them about the course. Generally speaking, students love the course. Generally speaking, actually, nearly in all cases, industry love the students. Employability is fantastic. In fact, the biggest problem is you can leave the course after 3 years with a bachelor's degree, and some students have, because basically they've been bought out by our residency partners. So companies have literally turned to us and said, we're really sorry, but we're going to make your students an offer. And they don't finish their masters then. But that's totally up to the student and the companies. Nearly all the students that have gone, well, actually all except one have gone to companies that are part of the residency. So by the time you finish your masters, you'll have probably worked between 4 or 5 different companies. And these companies are quite disparate and different. They're medical device companies. There's one that actually has a drone that flies around Dublin delivering pizzas. So they're really, really different companies. Some are really large American multinationals. Some of them are tiny startups. One of the other differences, before I ramble on too much, you'll tell me if I'm talking too much, but One of the other different
Towards the entrance requirements.
one of the other differences, this isn't really talking about the end requirements, about the course though, is what you'll sort of cover on it. It's 80% what I would call a standard computer science software engineering course. So you're going to come out as a software engineer at the end of this. So that's programming, that's operating systems, all pretty typical stuff that you do in a computer science course, perhaps with a much stronger focus of industry. So we're a very, very industry-focused course. The course was born out of industry, talking to you well about saying what we want. So it's a very industry-focused course. We have industry specialists coming in and teaching the students as well. 80% of the course is that. 20% of the course is about entrepreneurship, innovation, IP law, because one of the aspects of it that we want to produce is somebody that could, and we have students, I just had a conversation with 2 students that are doing their own startup, the 2 second years, and they're about to leave the course to give a startup a go. I don't know if I'll ever see them back, and that will be a success anyway. But 20% of the course is taught by the Chemie Business School, and it's about starting your own company, what will be involved in that. The idea, from my perspective as course director, what I want to come out the other end of the course is somebody that's a problem solver, able to speak, confident, and can come up with their own ideas. But most importantly, they're just not ideas, they're ideas that they can take and implement. So they actually are engineers, they know how to do it. And that's a really important thing, because it's really easy to say, oh, I've got this wonderful idea, can somebody else do it? And it's not really practical, it can't be done. The people that come out of ISE will actually be able to do it, okay? So they can come up with the ideas, they can have the innovation, and they can implement it. So that's the idea. These are entrepreneurial engineers in the software space. Now, I've probably talked enough, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the more operational side of things. So, Leaving Cert, H5, 4H7, 06 or 4, you see that up there. All this is on the webpage. H4 in maths. There is a special maths examination that you can do if you don't get that, but that's set at the higher level. I often get students that sort of are doing ordinary level maths, and they say, well, is there any chance I can get in? Could I do that extra exam? You can, but that extra exam is just like a higher level maths exam. So if you've done an ordinary level course, it's actually very hard to do that exam and pass it, just to let you know. I'm sorry if that affects some people. All applicants must submit an entrance submission, and we'll talk about that works. There's sort of 2 modes for that. It says maybe call for interview. It rarely happens actually for your standard CAO student, but it could be called for interview, but it rarely happens. That second submission is worth 20 points, which is added to your maximum CAO points, 625. If you're saying what sort of is our students, what are you looking for in a standard CAO to get in there? You're probably looking mid 500s up. Obviously your entry submission is going to be added onto that, but you'd want to be looking at a pretty good CAO anyway to have a shot at it. Yeah, I think that's about. I'm going to hand over to Ian now. I will talk about those more in detail. The one thing I would say to you all is get your questions ready. Okay, this is actually, rather than looking at a web, this is a chance where you can interact. And we have people here that deliver and work in every aspect of ISE. So for all those questions that weren't answered on the web page, or you have, just feel free to ask them. Okay.
Put a big slide up about me on myself, it's pretty bad. Anyway, Yeah, so I'm Ian O'Keefe. I'm one of the industry coordinators of the course. So myself and Mark up there, our job basically is to connect with all our residency partners and link all of you to get you the best places with all those residency partners. And we do 5 placements during the 4 years of the course, so we're pretty busy. We're placing about 240 people this year, so to give you an idea. So I'm going to talk through now is a quick overview of the 2 routes, which you're probably all quite familiar with them, I would say, if you're here. But we will then go into route A in more depth after that, and then route B in more depth after we're going to have a break in the middle. But focusing now on the technology project. It's a maximum of 800 words. It's worth 200 points, as is both routes are worth 200 points. They're added onto your 625 maximum from the CAO. So you have a maximum potential of 825 points when you're applying for ISE for LM173. As I was saying here, you don't need to write a computer program. We just want to see you showing you the ability in technology, that you're good at project planning, that you can plan ahead, you can come up with ideas, you can solve problems. They're the kind of qualities we're looking for. And we'd like an overview of your work and any impact you have as well. Don't worry, we will go into this in more detail in the next few slides. Then looking at the personal profile, this route was created about 2 years ago. We wanted to give an alternate route for people who felt, I don't have one large software project that I can submit, or maybe I haven't done that much coding, but I have an interest in technology. And so the idea there is you pick 3 of these 4 questions to answer instead. And very important right at the minute, because as you know, the first window for CAO has kind of closed just very recently. So these are the 3 submission timelines. We have the normal closing date, which is just closed. We've late and then change of mind. I've highlighted in yellow the normal ones, so I'd say that's probably affecting most people here today. Basically, what happens is the CAO send academic registry here in UL a list of everyone who wants to apply for this course. And that is due to arrive, I believe it's sometime mid next week, in fact. That's unofficially. It depends when the CAO send it. It can vary by a few days. And what will happen then is next week, sometime academic registry are going to send out emails to all of you that have applied with a link where you can then submit your entrance submission. And they have instructions in that email too on how to do that. And the deadline for submissions is 5 p.m. on Thursday the 26th of March. And then we would then be assessing them within the ISE course, and the idea is that we would get the results back to academic registry, which is then they will then distribute the results back to you by late April, so you know how many points you got from that part of the process. So it means you would know before you start the Leaving Cert, probably might be able to help you with future decisions. Any questions on the timeline? Or? Great. Back to yourself. And this is your favorite things you like about.
Yeah. So try to preempt questions, because you could say, well, what are you looking for in a portfolio? Because if we sit down and we get those things, and really why it's there, why we have a separate route to the CAO. The idea was we're trying to sort of give a student, we're trying to be able to look at it from a different angle. And what are we looking for? And this is important, I suppose, when you're putting your application together, because it's always nice to know, what is this person, what am I trying to display, or what am I trying to show? And I'm always trying to sort of find out, are the students the right stuff, if I want to sort of borrow a bit of a buzzword, right? So students that usually do well in software, become good software engineers, analytical mindset, strong ability to analyze problems, break problems down, identify efficient solutions. Software engineering and computer science is fundamentally problem solving, right? They're people that solve problems. So I tend to, if I can see that or echoes of that in some project they did or project report, that's usually a good thing. Strong mathematical foundations. I should emphasize it's not actually super essential for you to get really, really high, like H1 in honors maths. It's funny, over the years I've been in computer science, what I've noticed is if you're good at maths, that's an important aspect. And you can be really, really good at maths, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're a better programmer. What actually is important is that you're at least at a reasonable level of maths. So I've actually had people that are really good at maths that have been not so hot programmers, but I've never really had somebody that's sort of told me, I'm really bad at maths, I don't get maths at all. And if you're that sort of person, it's not going to work out. But if you're reasonable at maths, and it's sort of like once you meet a threshold, then after that, it's fine. Okay. So somebody that's quite happy with maths, they don't have to be a perfect mathematician. Okay. Logical reasoning is pretty important. The ability to think logically, systematically. And if you're going a project route, I want to think about debugging. And how does this apply for your project? I want to sort of see, I want to see that you've hit problems, and what you've done is you've thought your way around them, or you've solved them this way, or you tried this and this didn't work, you tried this and this didn't work, and then you realize that you tried this with this and did this, that worked. Okay, so mostly looking for a solutions orientated. I know I'm using lots of buzzwords, but they just fit, right? They describe the sort of person I'm looking for. Somebody that can think the way around blockages, right? Maneuver and sort stuff out. And if you're that sort of person, then I think that's what I'm looking for in all these sort of projects. I think I have another slide, do I? Excellent, thank you. Magically. Curiosity is something really important. So somebody that likes learning, and this is where I'm getting on to you asking lots of questions. I normally like, if I'm in a studio environment, I like students that I'm constantly sort of saying, no, but what about this, or what about that? And I encourage that, okay? I certainly normally wouldn't like be standing up here and talking as much as I'm talking, okay? So I encourage students that are curious about things, they're trying to learn things, and this is something you'll have to maintain all your life in computing. I had a student once ask me, did I do mobile app development? I used to teach mobile app development in a different course, and they said, did you learn mobile app development when you did your undergraduate? And it was like, no. There was no mobile apps, there was no mobile. And I started before the PC. So all through your life in this, if you become a software engineer, you will learn, because technology, this is no more obvious than it's ever been. Technology changes constantly, all the time, and it will continue to do so. So you're grabbing a surfboard and you're learning the principles, but there'll be a next wave, next wave, next wave. Now at the moment, AI is probably sitting on your mind in there, but there's already people looking at the next wave, and it'll be quantum computing, and after that will be another wave, and after that will be another wave. But this thing will constantly change, and that's really, really exciting and interesting, but means that you constantly have to learn and relearn and keep up with, and I like it. Resilience and persistence is very important to be able to solve problems. So if you're the sort of person that it itches at the back of your head and you keep on rolling it around and rolling it around and looking at it from different ways, and eventually you hammer it, that's usually a good characteristic. Okay, something that gets under your skin, and until you've cracked it, you're not happy. Okay, if you're recognizing this, then this is good. And attention to detail. So sometimes you really have to be sometimes you have to be able to close off the whole world around you, focus in, and actually stop anything else and just hammer and nail this thing. And those are the sort of characteristics, when it was put to me, what am I looking for? What are the sort of people, what are the sort of characteristics you think make for a good software engineer, would make for a good ISE student? It's all of those. And if you recognize those in yourself, it's usually a good thing, okay? Any questions so far? Good man yourself.
So, like, while the project is like focusing on these, would you advise to put some like a good bit of context to what your project actually about in the introduction, or would you prefer that you just go almost straight into like discussing the code?
There's word limits to an extent, I don't mind going straight into the code. I prefer, but I also, like, you probably should write to some of these points too, right? But certainly the code's nice to see if you're going that route, okay? If you're, and we'll talk about different routes, but I like evidence, right? So, and I like detail. So, but if you can relate it to your code, that would be really nice. So if you're saying, here's my system, I tried this, I did this, here's the code that did this, this bit did this, I had a problem using this, so then I adapted this, and I changed that. That sort of sounds really nice and interesting, right? Rather than, here's code, you know, that's nice to have code, but I would like a little bit of your journey to how you got there. That would certainly add to it. I don't know if that answers. Yep.
So what you're saying, you could show your code initially and then talk about your journey throughout sourcing back to the code as
Yeah.
your.
Yeah, that sounds great. Or even you can kick off with, you know what, I spotted a problem somewhere, or I worked in a shop and I used to spend 2 hours doing this, and I thought, you know what, I think I could write a program that could do this in 15 minutes, and you know, that's what I did. Or I had an idea to do this, or I like, I don't know, model airplanes, so. And I noticed I could program some sort of navigational thing and blah blah. You know, something that sometimes often that's just triggered you and sent you off down some sort of track. Right?
Like, it's the kind of problem I'm tackling right now in my project. Is thinking about the actual structure and how I want to structure it. It's like, I like what you're saying there, where you say, when you talk about why you went into it initially. So would you say it would look nice structured to actually first say why you went into the problem, then show your code, and then to talk about your process?
Yeah, that sounds nice. And if you're talking, if I get the feeling that you're relating to your code and you like beautiful structured programming, that's probably a good thing as well. Any more questions? Do I get to hand you back to Ian now? No?
Not quite.
All right.
Remember.
So I suppose this is overlapping a bit. This probably is a bit more detail for what you want. So problem identification, and it might be, problem identification might be what I was saying, it might be you've identified a problem. It also could be that somebody's come to you, or it could be that there's no problem at all. You actually have just had an idea to try and do something. So when I say problem, it doesn't have to be a problem. It could just be sometimes I've decided to try and write this, or I've decided to try and write that. Solution design and planning. So what are the steps that you thought about how you could do this? And it's okay to write a little bit about stuff that didn't work, okay? Certainly if you solve problems, you will start off some routes, the routes won't work, you'll hit something, you'll have to adapt, you'll have to change something, that's all good, okay? That happens all the time in reality, and a student that can sort of do that and realizes that they tried this route, this didn't work, and then often when you start trying to solve a problem, you actually don't really understand the problem until you've started to try and solve it, and then as you get more context, you realize actually the problem's a little bit more complicated than I thought, and you have to go. So those sort of paths are really interesting. So technical implementation. I don't really care what language it is. I mean, people say, what language do you program? You'll start actually in Java, but most students now that would be doing this route probably have played around with Python. How many people have programmed in Python here? Yeah. So Python's completely fine. Saying that, I want to sort of iterate, it's not important that you know how to program to get on the course. We have students that don't know how to program that get on the course, and they do fine. Okay, we start off from scratch. Being very honest, about 50% of the students in first year, first day, already have some sort of programming, usually Python. We don't teach Python, but most students pick it up. It's a pretty straightforward language. So when you sort of think about projects, iterative development, so that's normally your first go at it, doesn't work, and you refine it, and you refine it, and you refine it, and you refine it. And also milestones. And they can be milestones along the way. So I've made my project, I got to stage 1, which was this. I got to stage 2, which was this. I got to stage 3, it was this. Sometimes, you know, or the milestone, sometimes people don't even have a milestone in that, you know, they're not actually sure what they're trying to do. And it's really nice if you know, you have targets, you know, targets that you can get along the way. So the first stage was I tried to do this, and this was my successful version of this. This was my successful version of this. This was, you know, and then eventually it was completed. So I suppose a method of fragmenting or factoring your whatever your project is into cognitively digestible lumps, if you want. As a programmer, you'll have to learn to take a complex problem space and split it up. The term I use in class is cognitively digestible lumps, because most problems seem much too large at first. So your problem must be splitting those and sub-splitting those. And if there's some evidence that you can do that, it's really a good thing. Once your solution is there, it's nice to see some idea of validation and testing, right? So you can actually show it works. You've proven to yourself it works, and not just with the ideal amount of data, but it works in adverse and weird situations. So if you try and pump in data that you shouldn't, your software still stands, it doesn't fall over. So you've thought about that, yeah?
Are you looking for entire code bases or just like choosing?
You probably won't be enough to put entire code bases in there. Well, when you say entire code bases, it's hard to quantify what that is, but yeah, as much as you can, that's reasonable. If that's, which isn't really that. I don't know if I'm not going to quantify it with lines of code.
You could link to a GitHub repository or something.
Yeah, you can link to a GitHub repository. So that probably gets you around that. And reflective learning and improvement. So it's nice at the end of it to sort of say what you've learned, and if you were, in reality, nearly everything we do, and I'm an old grey-haired man now, but nearly, you know, if you go back to me, and nearly everything I've done at some stage, and you say, would you do it exactly this way again? You would say, no, I would change this, I would change that, I would change this. So some reflection on what you've learned and what you would do if you were going to do it next time. Okay, it's a sort of metacognition, I suppose. Yeah? Any more questions before I go? Oh, 2, great, this is good.
Can you add additional documentation?
Add an additional document. Well, if you can put a link to GitHub, which lets you sort of put all sort of stuff in GitHub. One thing I would say to you though, when we're talking, and this sort of goes to sort of entrepreneurial pitches, understand that we get a lot of applications, and I would love to say to you, we spend 2.5 hours in each one going through it, and that is not the reality though. So you want to get the important bits up front, because what we'll do is we'll look at it, and you want to sort of say, this is the stuff I really want to show you up front. It's great afterwards if you're saying, I have a huge code base, and you can put that in GitHub, because sometimes, you know, we'll want to investigate, or we'll go down a rabbit tunnel of a particular project, and we'll say, well, what do they mean? And we can do that. So it's nice if you have that in GitHub, right? But make sure not to just sort of bury your little gems way, way, way down somewhere, thinking we'll get to them after we've looked at it for an hour. Okay, so pick. I don't know if you've ever watched Lion's Den. Oh, Dragon's Den. Have you ever watched Dragon's Den? Get that pitch up front on your report. Yeah. Lion's Den.
What's your idea of a line around the presentation?
So like you were saying before with GitHub now, like we were saying, to break it down into smaller little packages,
Yeah.
and jump into different stages. So could you say that you could source all of your code in GitHub initially, but then for each stage you have a little snippet,
Yeah.
exactly where that is applicable
That sounds really nice.
And then there's no way they have to dig through it and find exactly where it is.
So what you're thinking of, this dude's gonna spend 10 minutes
Yeah.
looking at my salmon. Now, maybe they'll spend more, right? But you wanna make it so that the stuff that you really wanna put forward and show is up front and at the top. And at the same time, the GitHub should be, if they wanna drill down, right, I want to let them drill down if they want to. But don't assume we're spending 2 or 3 hours and have this 72-page report that we're going to read, because there's lots for us. Frankly, there's lots for us to go through. And I suppose part of this is sort of like a pitch, so make sure your good stuff is up front, okay? But give us depth as well. And for the other, evidence is really nice. Evidence in terms of code, whatever evidence you can give, that goes with your claim is really, and that's for both sort of routes. Evidence is really important. So it's not enough to say, I am great, I'm wonderful, I'm a really good coder, trust me, right, okay? Evidence is really nice to see. More questions?
How strict is that word count?
Do we have how strict is the word count?
Well, it's there because it's strict, really, so. otherwise, there's wiggle room and.
It's pretty
That's
strict.
why it's added there, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it fair for everyone. Everyone does the same work.
I suppose you could look at it, it comes into a fairness thing, and I suppose it's up to you to make it fit. Okay, so that's part of the challenge, and that's part of the challenge in anything, right? If you're given the word count, you're thinking, oh, if I only have 5% more, it's a job. No, you've got to make it fit, right? So you've got to decide what you put in and what you leave out. There was a question somewhere up here, yeah?
2 questions actually. Who evaluates the portfolio submissions is one question. And the
We as a
second-
group, so I'll be evaluating some, there'll be other people evaluating others, but all ISE staff, right? So we literally sit down and there's a big evaluation pool when we go through all of these, and we grade them and mark them and share them. So, yeah, so that's who evaluates them.
Okay.
So we're literally, I'm telling you from lived experience of what we're looking for and what we've done. So, the second question.
Second question. Out of the 200 points, is there any indication of what is an average achieved, or the highest or lowest?
I'm reluctant to say this, but I'll say this since we're here. It's usually more than 100 anyway. Is that? Yeah, it's usually more than 100. So I don't think we ever give anybody 0, right? Because I think that would just be a nasty thing to do. You probably can do it if you really want to go for it, right? But that's, I don't think we've ever done that. So usually the span, most people sort of get moderately okay, and some people get 200. Some people are outstanding, and we share them and look at them and think, no, this person is really good. We want this person. So yeah, somewhere I'd say usually somewhere between 100 and 200. Ian, you can tell me if I'm lying.
Yeah, it's in that range.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any more questions?
And just to point out that as well, more than one person views it, we can handle at least 3 people will be viewing.
Are there any sort of headings or topics you should say that we should avoid when picking our portfolio?
I can't think of anything you should avoid, really, when you ask it like that. And I don't really want to give you a load of headings and topics because, and this happens through the course actually too. I often get students that want, really tight rubrics and everything else. But when we talk about projects and entry submissions sort of fall into that, they're all very different. And I don't want a formulaic sort of, tick this box, tick this box, tick this box. So I suppose I want to give you enough information on what we're looking for and the sort of things that we want. But after that, you get to pick your own headings and get to present whatever you've done. And believe me, the variety of projects that we have, stuff comes in and I've never seen anybody, I never even thought about doing that, right? So the variety is quite immense and comprehensive. And it's up to you to present it the best way that you can. And I don't want to really say, these are the headings, these are the word counts for each headings, blah, 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 blah. I think that's too formulaic and imposing a structure which will fit some and not fit others.
So, don't use that structure
That's not a structure. That's what I'm looking for, right? Those aren't headings for a document. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. What your headings are and how you split that up is going to be different for each project. Okay. So at the same time, I want to give you a feel, but I don't want to get really formulaic about it, really detailed. Were you taking those as headings? Well, that's okay. All right. I mean, if they fit. Well, let's put it this way. You could say, no, they're perfect. I'll take all of those. But somebody else will sit there and say, but that doesn't fit with mine. And or what about this? I want to add this. Is that okay? So broadly speaking, yes. But change those, add those. You don't perhaps use exactly, it's your project. The project, whatever you've done and what headings fit. But that's, what I look for in a good software-based project, but you can represent those in different sections and stuff. Yes?
Are you able to speak about 2 or more projects, or is it strictly
One project.
this one?
Yeah. Goes back to the 15-minute thing, right? So I would have students, well, I want to submit 14 different things that I worked on, and we'll just never look at them all. So pick the best one. You can't, if they're 2 small ones, maybe, right? If you've done 2 small different things, maybe, but not 2 major things. And one thing I would say is it is very common for students to think they're expecting this massive, huge project, right? Sure, all I've done is X number of lines of code, it's quite small, it's going to look pathetic, I'm not going to submit that, I'm not going to do that. So it's very common for students to shoot themselves down before they even start. Don't do that. The only way you can guarantee that you don't get into the course is don't apply. Okay. So if you're thinking, my project isn't good enough, it's not going to stand up, don't. Okay. Give it a go if you're interested. Okay, I'm not saying you're going to get in, but the one thing that'll guarantee you don't get in is not applying. And learn to apply, learn to push yourself forward. If you're a student in the course, I would say this to you as well. Right? Don't undermine yourself. Don't be your own, greatest critic. You go for things. You try things out. That's the space we like to create in ISE anyway, and that should really start about your application. So whatever project you've got, you make it as good as you can, and you go for it. Okay, worst case scenario, you don't get it, but you know what, maybe you will. Okay.
Of the projects you're getting in, what percentage of them have code included in them? And if people aren't included in code,
well,
how do they show
there's
that
2
they're
routes.
included?
So we're talking about sort of I'm mostly about the technical route. So we'll talk a little bit about the other route as well, which doesn't require any code at all.
Yeah.
As far as images don't count as a word count. So is there a limit for images?
No, not that I'm aware of. Do we have a limit?
We don't do pictures as words, it's then,
Yeah.
one picture.
Don't think so.
Okay.
When you can be called for an interview,
Yeah.
why would you call them in?
Why would you be called for an interview? I can't think off the top of my head. I've never called anybody for an interview.
I can tell you, the reason that we put that in was if we were ever concerned that you hadn't done this work yourself. Maybe a parent had helped you, or you'd, mugged somebody and stolen their code or something. This is sort of pre-AI, right? And so if we have a feeling that this thing was totally generated by ChatGPT or something, we could call you up and be like, why did you do that? And just sort of stare at you.
We might get a student that was sitting on
That's the reason. That's the reason why it's there.
Yeah.
I think we've only ever used it once or twice, maybe. Once or twice. It would be quite unusual for us to do it. And to be clear, it does not carry marks, and it will never carry marks. It's just for us to check that you did what you did. I want to be really clear about this. We don't score this on the basis of an interview. That's because we know that there's a huge amount of evidence that interviews are always subject to some kind of structural bias, and so we just don't do it for that reason.
which is why we talk about the word evidence. It's good if you can put in your own evidence as well, right? So we talk about GitHub, and some of you might know what GitHub is, and that's okay. But if you're going the technical route, you can put versions, development versions in GitHub. Now you may not have those if you haven't sort of had a history of your iterations, but that can sort of help as well. So evidence is good. But yeah, we might interview somebody if they sort of present us with this piece of software which is unbelievably brilliant, and we're thinking, we really, really want the student is fantastic. Surely they can't have written that. And maybe we can just meet them and talk to them and say, actually, yeah, they are that brilliant. They were that good.
In both cases, by the way, they were. They were just so awesome. We were like, there's no way. There's no way these people were this awesome. They were that awesome. And they're the course.
So, any more questions?
Sorry, I was just wondering about like what medium you want the project done on. Would you like a Word document and then like screenshots of code talking about it, or like a Python file with comments in it?
We have a lot of those specific details on our website actually about the requirements.
We've talked about them a few times. I can't remember what they are, which is why I'm reluctant to say. Yeah,
Okay.
we've written it on the website. Any more questions? Questions are good. Remember, this is when you get to ask them.
And at the end we have Q&A as well.
Yeah, and I'll be around if you want to pin me to the wall and ask more questions. Who do I pass on to now?
Oh,
Me. Go on, then.
So actually, it's not me next, but I'm just, we were talking about giving examples of projects. We're going to have some actual examples now. I'm delighted to invite Anna Moan, one of our brilliant second years here, to come down and talk about her project. So thank you so much.
Hi everyone, it's nice to see you all here today. I was a bit last minute, so I don't have any slides, so I'm just going to kind of talk through what my project was. I'd just like to say before I start that the entrance submission for me was kind of the beginning of like my computer science technical journey. So my school didn't offer like computer science as a subject. It didn't offer technology as a subject. So if you're concerned that like I don't have a background in coding, don't know anything about programming, it's absolutely not a barrier to entry. Don't feel like it is, and don't feel like you're behind, because this was literally my first go in that. What my school did have was engineering, and what engineering kind of taught me was I have this like love for solving problems and for finding unique solutions to things. So if that is kind of where your mindset is, you're probably right for this course. And I think that's what you should show in your entrance submission. Don't worry about the technical sophistication of it as much. It's more so showing that you have an interest in learning and a curiosity and like an interest in problem solving, because that's way more important for ISE than any specific tech stack or language. Like, you can come into the course and pick up Java. You can come into the course and pick up a framework, but you cannot come in and just pick up a love for solving problems. That's something that we want to see in the entrance submission. So, just something specific. So my project was done on an Erasmus that I did, a 3-week Erasmus as part of a PLC course. And I was given the project spec to make a website. And I made this website using raw HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And if you know anything about web dev, I'm sure some of you do, that's really primitive. It's really hard to do and hard to use, and it's not at all what you'd be using in industry, but it showed the right principles and the right, I suppose, curiosity and that kind of thing. So the problem and identification and scope was, I was given a project spec. So I had to design a website documenting my Erasmus experience through pictures. So I had a website with carousels of images that you can click through and various pages that you can click through. Really, really simple. The technical implementation, again, was just raw HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But what's really important is the problem solving and the adaptability. I had never done anything like this before. I didn't have any access to AI at the time. It was kind of back in 2023, so it was around, but it wasn't as sophisticated as it is now, and I was not aware of how to use AI as a tool, so I was using things like Stack Overflow, things like online repositories to look for examples. And that's the kind of problem solving that'll get you your points in the portfolio, not really the actual technical sophistication of it. And reflective learning and improvement is kind of showing how you've learned over the course of the process. I made a first draft and it was alright. I thought it needed these improvements, and then I went away and learned how to make those improvements. And then what you would do differently is really important as well. So at the end of the project, like Chris said, you're never going to have a project and think, yeah, did that perfectly that time, absolutely nailed that one. You're always going to be like, there was something I could have done differently there. I could have done more research, could have used a different tool. And putting that down at the end actually shows like more learning. It shows better understanding of the problem space than if you just said, yeah, I did it absolutely perfectly. Even though you might want to look like, you know, oh, I knew what I was doing. It's actually better to know what you don't know than to think you know everything. I think that's kind of everything to do with my project. I'd just like to say as well, to build again on what Chris said, you might get that moment where you're thinking, oh, this is a really silly project and this isn't right at all for the course, and I'm just not going to submit it. I had that moment as well. It was the last day of submission, because again, I'm a procrastinator, and I was looking at the website going, this is such a pathetic project, like it's not impressive at all, there's no way I'm getting into this course, and then it got me 174 points, which is 87%. So do not doubt yourselves, you are well capable of getting into this course. The fact that you are here today shows that you are already interested, you're already invested, and you're already the right kind of person for the course. So don't give up on yourself, be curious, and do a project that you love. Thank you.
Next, we have another student who couldn't make it here, but I'm going to go through this project from 2 years ago. So it'll just give you an idea, I suppose, of the scope of how many different types of projects we do get submitted. And so this was a project focusing on making a common character searching tool. And kind of what I have highlighted at the top is the submission from the student, and underneath then are kind of our views on it. Like, so you can see here that they're interested in comics and they wanted to be able to search through them. I'll read that for a minute. So one example of this here is it's the student demonstrated their design process, how they designed this, in terms of they shared photos of paper-based rough work they'd done. That was very good evidence. You mentioned evidence, Chris. And also linked to a GitHub repository so that reviewers could then see the code and the documentation. So. Then looking more kind of, was the students demonstrating kind of iterative development. You know, it's very rare you just write something the first time and it's perfect. You're going to have to keep trying things, improve them. And what you can see here being demonstrated, the student showing sample outputs for the sample characters they're looking for. They improve the accuracy. They remove misleading values from data. This is data cleaning. And then they're also showing other sources of the same information to verify its accuracy. That's an example there of software testing straight away. And then looking at adaptability and problem solving, they were talking about redoing different approaches they took to try and solve the problems, issues they faced. And this is showing how the student worked around initial technical issues by trying new approaches and gave examples of testing to make sure that the results were accurate and also that they're reproducible. And then finally here, thinking about reflective learning and improvement. Students then talking about what they'd learned from it, kind of expressing back to us what they'd learned from the process. And a report and future work, what could be done in the future. And back then it was a PDF, it's now a docx, so we want more flexibility. So. So that's an overview then about another typical project we've had that was kind of very different to the first project we just heard about. And
He's just out the room.
Stephen.
Well, maybe I can take any questions in the meantime. You could go and grab Stephen's time to come back.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Is this slide available after
Yeah, well, we can have it. Yeah. Yeah. I think we're recording this too. Alan, we can put this up on the web and stuff. So this will be up on the web anyway. So if you've missed something, that's fine. Stephen, you left it just perfect.
Sorry, I have a part-time job and my boss is ringing me about something. I'm Stephen, I'm a member of the team here in ISE, and I wanted to give you some intuition for why we're putting you through this. You are all very busy people, you probably just got your mocks back, mock results, you're delighted, you're devastated, you're busy, you're stressed, you have 10,000 things to do, you have sports and boyfriends and girlfriends and everything else going on, and we're asking you to do a portfolio on top of everything else. Why? And this is, and I'm here to give you the answer. When we were designing ISE, we knew that we wanted to select for a very specific kind of person. The kind of person who has these traits, not those traits, the kind of person who looks exactly like me, no. The kind of person who can identify a problem, think through a solution, and be resilient in the face of things going wrong. And then try to iterate on that solution. If that's you, if that sounds a bit like you, this is the course for you. If you're thinking to Anna's amazing point, if you're thinking, that's not like me, but I just have this one thing I need to go over here and do, that's probably you. You know, and the reason that this exists is we wanted to give an opportunity for people who weren't, who maybe weren't going to get 625 points, because for whatever reason they were more pushing towards coding, maths, physics, etc. To get into the course, because otherwise it would just be 625 points, right? And that's why this exists. It exists to give us an extra piece of signal, and very importantly, that signal is there to demonstrate that, you know, I can think through things. I'm a relatively nuanced thinker, and I can do stuff. The reason ISE exists is to solve a problem in higher education, which is sometimes it can be the case that somebody can come out with a degree and not be able to do what it says the degree says they're able to do. So for an employer, the fact that you've actually been out and you've been into companies and you've worked on this kind of stuff yourself, it's really important as a strong signal, and the outcomes from our course prove that really, really strongly. The students who have graduated with the BSc, almost all of them are working in residency companies. They've got amazing careers. Judging by their Instagrams, they're having amazing lives. It's very cool, and it's very gratifying as one of the founders of the course to see it happen. And we want that for you as well. In order to do that, obviously you've got to do the CAO thing. But the reason that we're asking you to do this is just to give us that extra piece of signal. And you can see that the projects are really varied, and when they tend to speak about you in some sense, that's when we read them and go, yeah, that's amazing. You know, we will have somewhere between 50 and 60 students in this cohort coming in, which it's about the same size as it was last year. Really, really excited. I hope to see all of you in there. But I really wanted to give you an intuition for this. This is why we're doing this. It's that slight extra piece of signal. And it's also the thing that it gives us confidence that you're going to come in the door with the right attitude and with the right kind of focus on what you need to do. to Chris's point, to Ian's point, if you've never coded before, that's grand. Don't worry about it. That's why we have the second round. We'll take you from scratch, we'll move you forward. It'll be tough. It's a tough course. It's designed to be tough. That's a feature, not a bug. It's intensive. Feature, not a bug. It features 5 residency placements. Feature, not a bug. You're not going to get a whole pile of holiday time. Feature, not a bug. But the outcomes for you are going to be incredible. And as somebody, again, who's been with the course since 2019, who was there literally the day it started, the night it started, I can tell you that for every student involved in it, even if the outcome is I dropped out in second year to start a company, that is a success, right? Maybe not for the parents. The parents in the room, it's a bit stressful. We've just been dealing with that. But for everybody else, it's a remarkable experience. And the portfolio, or so the technical projects, the project route, and the entrance submission route allows us to sort of tune the entry class in order that when we kind of push you a little bit, we know you can take it. And when you are working on this stuff, you have a good sense of what it is you're going to be asked to do into the future. And that's a really powerful thing. You know, we very often in universities have a situation where somebody comes in and they start a course and they go, oh, I didn't realize it was like this. And that's completely natural, and it happens all the time. We have a thing called the first 7 weeks program to really kind of stop people from dropping out and kind of move people between courses. It's totally cool. Happens all the time. For this course, we wanted to reduce that and make sure that kind of first couple of weeks dropout rate was vastly reduced. And I think in the 5 years or whatever we've been doing this now, I think we've had 3 people drop out because, like I said, we're kind of selecting. So that's why we do this. We also appreciate, by the way, you are busy people. To my earlier point, you've got lots of things going on in your lives. It's a beautiful day outside. It's like the first nice day. And so we appreciate, we're asking more of you. We appreciate that for the people in the room, for the people who are watching this online. We appreciate that you have other things to do. We are imposing a cost on you. We know that. But I hope you hear from my previous remarks the reason for it is the benefits are commensurately high. We're going to put an enormous amount into you in terms of our time, our expertise, working with the companies, professional development, helping you set up your own companies if you want, helping you attract funding, everything else. It's a really different experience to an undergraduate program. For the parents in the room who've been through college, it's not like the college that you did. It's pretty radically different actually. That's why it's so exciting. So I think the final thing to say is thank you. Just thank you all very much. Thank you for the time you've already put into it. Thank you for the time you will put into it. And thank you for the opportunity to work with you as future students of ISE. You are very likely the best students in the country. Guaranteed, when you get into the course, you'll be the hardest working students in the country. So thank you very much. We know you have other opportunities. We know that you can do a lot of other things: medicine, law, architecture, accounting, theoretical physics. We know that these are all in your opportunity set. So we recognize that, and just from everybody on the team, thank you very much for the opportunity to work with you, because we know the potential that you've got, and we know that if you give us the opportunity to work with you, we will put commensurate amounts of effort into making sure that the future is great for you. So I think what we might do there is stop and give you a break from listening to me. So thank you very much.
Hi everyone, great to see you all here today. And if you haven't met me before, my name is Gillian Pace. I'm the Public Engagement Officer at ISE. But prior to that, I used to work in the software engineering industry. And when I saw this course, I became such a fan of it because I genuinely feel this is the way we should train software engineers. So it's an exceptional course. You know, companies get amazing students on residency, and students just get just a phenomenal CV by the end of it. You know, having placements up to 5 of our partner companies and getting paid for those placements. I actually calculated it yesterday. So over the 4 years in ISE, you can earn up to like 40,000 over those 4 years in those placements. So that's around the average. So, you know, it's a really great way to combine that learning with your studies. So, yeah, big fan of ISE, so ended up coming to work here. So my main job is just to talk about it to students and companies. So today I'm going to talk you through the personal profile. So it might have been mentioned already, but this was brought in about 3 years ago as a second pathway, because what we found was, through feedback, we heard that students who maybe didn't do computer science or hadn't done much coding were put off by this, you know, technical project and terminology. So ISE is really incredible at listening to feedback and adapting to it. So the second pathway, the personal profile, was born. So we're really interested in seeing students from different types of backgrounds. We really want that diversity. We want to be able to attract all students into ISE and to find a pathway for all students that are interested and really want to learn how to code and learn this tool to problem solve. So the personal profile came in 3 years ago, and it's basically a way of us telling, you know, listening to who you are and how you think and how you problem solve, etc., without maybe having those technical skills that we will teach you going forward. So we do want you to show us your skills and interests related to science, technology, engineering and maths, and innovation, but we really want to see what's unique about you. So every single person in this room now is unique, and like when I'm reading those submissions, I really want to see your personality come through. I really want to see what you're interested in. Like, don't just tell us what you think we're interested in. Tell us what you're interested in and what problems you're solving and why. So that's what I really want to see. And just to the side, right, I just love seeing you guys here today. So in first year, I do a survey when the first years come in, and I ask them, you know, how did you hear about ISE, or which events did you attend? And like nearly all of the class say that they come to this entrance admission workshop. So looking around here today, you probably are, you know, most of the class that are going to come in September. So look around and meet each other today, because you could be classmates come September. So option B, personal profile. So we have described 4 questions here. We want you to answer 3. So just 3 of these questions, and each one we want up to 400 words. So that's not an awful lot, okay? So really think very concisely about what you might answer for each of these questions and which one portrays you in the best manner, shows your unique capabilities, describes you, shows how you think, shows your resilience, shows your innovation. Each question you only have up to 400 words. So not a lot, okay? And again, really important to provide some links and evidence of what you're saying. So if you're like chess master, you know, in Munster, give us a link to an article on that, or if you've written some code, give us a GitHub link that we can go in and drill down to, or if there's been a, you know, an article, you know, about being in Team Turn and having some amazing projects up in Young Scientists, you know, show us that sort of stuff, right? There's really, you know, cool stuff there, but we want to be able to drill down a little bit more and see the kind of evidence and see a bit more information about it, because 400 words isn't a lot. So question 1, actually I'll just go back. Question 1 is, do you have a talent or interest that is highly important to you? Tell us about this aspect of your identity and your key accomplishments in this area. So again, if you can keep this to kind of the STEM area, so that we can understand how you logically think, how you go through problem solving again, and you know, obviously when you have an interest, you have to be really resilient and you have to work really, really hard. Like, show us that, but try and bring it back to STEM if you can, which would be really great. So there's an example here of somebody who was very interested and passionate about equal access to education, and you can read some of the submission. And here the student demonstrates an excellent commitment to a specific STEM interest. So really is defining what the goal was and what the interest is. And they've reached a high level of excellence and impact or accomplishment in this area. So what I really like about this as well is they're really describing how they're measuring the success of what they did and their interests. So they're telling you exactly how, you know, they've improved the situation, and we can really see how their interests really drove on results. So this engagement has had a transformative effect on the students, and the students has learned something from their experience. So this is a really nice one. If you can think of something that fits this, it's a great question. It gives us a lot of insight into who you are and what you're passionate about. Just going to scroll back. Question 2 then. Tell us about a time you solved a problem. How did you identify and test the solution? What did you learn from the experience? So this is similar to the technical project in the sense of The technical project is tell us about a time you solved a problem using technology. This one doesn't have to be technology, okay? It can, or if you want, but it doesn't have to be. So again, engineering is all about problem solving, and software engineering is learning the tool of software to solve those problems. So tell us how you solve problems, how you interrogate problems. Question 2. Okay, so we want you, oh, too far. Very sensitive. Yeah, so when you choose a problem of key significance, I think it's really nice if you choose a problem that is very personal to you or something that you feel connected with. Again, don't think, you know, oh, what would they like to hear or what problems do you think they want to solve. Like, do something that is really connected to you, and again, that will show us your personality. And describe the context and describe the challenge. So give us as much information as you can so we can visualize, you know, what you saw and how you came up with this idea. And then how did you identify the solutions? You know, what data did you gather? What analysis did you do? You know, did you do surveys? Were you talking to people? All that sort of stuff. Give us a quick overview of how you identified the different solutions. Maybe you looked at competition to what you might write and see what they're doing. And then how did you choose a solution? So how did you look at each solution and see what merit they had, the pros and cons, etc. Maybe SWOT analysis, whatever. And you know, how did you implement it and how did you test it? So if you've created something for somebody maybe with a disability or somebody from a particular background, did you test it with those people? You know, or did you just test yourself and go, that's grand? You know, like really kind of check that what you did was right. And what did you learn from the experience? So we want to see a level of, you know, looking back and going, well, could I have done that better? And what did I learn along the way? You know, how different was I from the start of this project to the end, and what am I going to bring with me? So really be reflective and maybe think about what you might do in the future. So I know you don't have a lot of time left, so maybe some of you got some ideas that you might not implement in time for the deadline of March 26th, but you might go, well, if I had another 2 months, I would do A, B, C. That again gives us a really good insight into how you're going to move forward again in your development. So software is never done. You know, you can always improve it, you can always make it better. And you know, don't second guess yourself. As Anna said, just get your project in. Like, there's always going to be room for improvement. And if you have an idea, just tell us about it so we know what your future plans will be. And that's going to be great for us to see. Third question then, you know, tell us about your background in computer science. So again, if you don't have a specific technical project that you want to show us, maybe you have multiple projects, you kind of want to talk about them in a group, you know, maybe you've been involved in hackathons, competitions, coder dojos, all that sort of stuff. If you wanted to give a more generic overview of your computer science background, this could be a good question for you. But be specific about the computer science and software elements and the languages and the tools that you use, because that will really help us again to understand how far you've gone with your computer science education. And then finally, this one is like, pitch us an idea for a project. So again, we're going to teach you the tools of being a software engineer. I think Stephen mentioned like about half of our students come in and maybe they haven't done a lot of computer science before, they maybe haven't done it for leaving certs, and we teach from scratch. But it is quite intensive and accelerated, okay? But we do teach from scratch. So you're going to do a lot of projects in ISE, and you probably come in with a lot of ideas, and we're going to teach you the tools to build those projects. So this is an opportunity to pitch us an idea for a possible project that you might work on later on. So again, you see a gap in the market, or you see something that would be great for teenagers or whatever, and pitch us that idea for that project. Like, draw it out with a pen and paper. Like, we can teach you the tools to build that later, and that would really give us a great insight into how you think and what kind of problems you want to solve and where you want to go with these skills in the future. So yeah, again, show us as much as possible, draw it out. Again, it's only 400 words, but you can add some pictures as well to kind of highlight what you're thinking and illustrate that. So there are the 4 questions. Any questions on that? I would say as well, once you've done your questions, so pick your 3 strongest questions and do get somebody to review it. So somebody maybe that you know, maybe a teacher or maybe a peer, and just ask them to have a look over it again and see if there's anything you can add or edit just to really highlight your strengths. Look, I'll be around if you have any questions, we can chat afterwards. But next I'm going to pass you over to Michael Bentley. He's going to show you a little bit about his project that he did, this in-person profile approach. Thank you.
Anyone know a software engineer?
How many software engineers does it take to change light bulb?
Go all the way down the wire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is my personal profile. Yeah, so ISE is really about who you are as a person as well. So it's not just like your engineering merits and whatnot. It's also what type of person you are, how you be when you work in a company, what your mindset is when it comes to like products and generally how you look at software as well. So software isn't just about like engineering solutions and difficult solutions. It's more about making products, and software just happens to be the way that we do it. So what I wanted to convey in my profile was not just my engineering merits, but also the type of person I am as well, and why I'd be suited to working in industry at companies like Intercom and whatnot, where they're really focused on customers. So I chose a personal profile because I could put in things about what I'd learned about engineering and whatnot, but also things about my character that I thought ISE would be interested in. So the questions that I chose were describe an instance where you confronted a challenge, setback or failure, which you had to overcome. I chose this because obviously when you go into industry, you're going to be constantly put up to challenges where you don't know everything. You're going to have to come up with tricks and workarounds that might not be generally in the manual, and ISE really looked for that. So my challenge was when I was in school at the time, and even when I wrote this, I didn't know that I had ADHD, so I found it difficult to focus in school, and ultimately my workaround was that during COVID, I started to learn about computers and whatnot when I was at home, and just ended up learning how to teach myself things. So for the Immersive then, I was able to teach myself all my subjects and ended up getting enough points to get into ISE then because of that. So then if I scroll down, my second question then was question 4, which is just the software side of things. So in this as well, it's really important. Just because you've got 400 words, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only way that you can communicate what you're good at. So throughout my PDF, I embedded links to my website and to the different technologies that I've used and whatnot, and put in loads of illustrations and stuff like that. So even though this only has 300 or 400 words for each question that I answered, each one has a link to my website, a link to the projects that I made, and someone who's viewing the PDF can then go in and click on all the links that I had and just explore my profile from that. And yeah, they're my projects. It doesn't really matter so much about like the technologies that you use and whatnot, but just more so that you can prove that you went in with an issue or something that you wanted to solve, and then you're pragmatic about how you went about it. So I think a common pitfall for young engineers is trying to put in technology keywords and stuff like that, where a senior engineer will come and look at all the technologies and stuff that you use and ask like, why did you use it and stuff like that. So yeah, I put in links to all the technologies that I use, but it's they're all there for a purpose too. So there's another example of an illustration there from one of my projects. That's for a neural network. So in every illustration you do, you can add in more elements to basically convey why you're appropriate. So all the diagrams that I had put in showed that I understood like how neural networks work, how cloud architectures are laid out and whatnot. Then, sorry. Back on, please. So yeah, and then the last one is actually less so about tech, even though it is about tech. This just shows my sense of humor as well. So when you go work in a company, you want to just be a person that people want to be around. So I made Tinder for cows. So if you're a cow and you want to find your cow's boyfriend or girlfriend, you can go on to Tinder for cows and find the best cow for you. So what this actually does, like technically, it uses machine learning and whatnot to basically find from genetic statistics which cows are best matched for each other for a breeding. Yeah, Tinder for cows. That's it.
I'll just grab the mic when we're sitting up. Put on that. Put on that.
You probably don't need it, Chris.
Yeah, I don't need it, but there was just a couple of questions that I wanted to answer. You were asking that thought might be relevant to everybody. So one of them was about student accommodation. And they said, well, if the timetable is sort of longer than the normal UL timetable, if students are on student accommodation, will that still be available for the 2 or 3 weeks after the normal student? And they said the answer is yes, if they're in student accommodation on campus here. And that leads to another question was, will ISE find accommodation for the students, you know, if they're placed in Dublin or placed in Cork or sometimes abroad? And the answer is no. So you'll have to find your own accommodation. We love to say ISE will find accommodation for you, but in the current climate it's just about impossible. So some companies actually provide accommodation, but that's depending on which residency you get. And we'll try and help you as much as possible, but we can't sort of provide accommodation for the different residencies. So we'll give you enough notice, hopefully, for you to find those out. So those were just 2 questions that I specifically thought might be relevant to everybody that they have sort of asking.
No, it doesn't at all.
Hi everybody, I'm Sophie. I'm doing my first year in Immersive Software Engineering, and I'm going to talk to you about the personal profile, which was my method of getting into ISE. And getting started, I think that you should take the questions that you can answer the strongest. Obviously, some questions will stand out to you when you're trying to write it, and I think you shouldn't overthink it or overcomplicate it. Write what feels authentic to you. And every profile is unique, so no one's going to have the same profile or exactly the same interests as you do. So write whatever you feel is the best and what showcases yourself the best to ISE. Why I chose this route, I didn't do computer science or have any coding experience before, so I felt really happy when I found this course and I saw that there's a personal profile, because then I could talk about myself, and who doesn't love that? And I felt that I could probably tackle writing by myself better than picking up a coding project where I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. And so I feel like if you want to get into this course, just do the personal profile and you can write about anything you want. Because it also, I thought that it was really good because I could show how I would be fit for a course like this, or why I could flourish in an industry like this, because it obviously is a flourishing industry, and I really wanted to showcase that. Why I chose my questions. I chose questions based on whatever you're passionate about, so just go for it. Challenges that I faced was me being in my Leaving Cert era, and I tried to treat it like it was like a perfect English essay and trying to get like 1,000 words in and all my PQEs and all, but it's 400 words and it's actually way simpler than you think. So don't treat it like a perfect English essay, just write what feels true to yourself. And I also had fears of getting the questions wrong, but there is no right or wrong way. Just express yourself how you feel is best for you. And so yeah.
So this is kind of open to anyone who wants to pitch in themselves as David as well.
So I can pitch in the first one. So it's hard to shut me up sometimes, but so one of the discussions I had with somebody, just when I was a software engineer over the break, was AI and Gen AI, how that's affecting well our students and how we're educating. I've just started a project that looks at going to some of our partners, which lots of them are using Gen AI to generate code, because we plan to put this into the course. So next year I would hope to have a major that's just looking at Gen AI code development for software engineers. And so far, without going into a whole lot of detail, and the first two can me, I sort of try to discourage for the first two blocks use of Gen AI for coding. My current view is, but after that, it's a reality, right? And I fully intend that ISE engineers will be able to use any tool that's available to be able to solve the problems. I mean, it's problem solving, and Gen AI will help and make you more efficient in doing that. So that will be introduced into the course. We already have AI in the course, but specifically Gen AI for code development will be introduced into the course. So the biggest sort of aspect of it at the moment is we just expect and require all students to declare if they're using Gen AI and what way they've used it. And like I said, in terms of avoiding it, it's from a pedagogy point of view that I'm choosing to avoid it for the first semester or first year, because I sort of think students have to learn the very little baby steps first of all, but it's out there, and I know some students probably are using it already. Any question about that? I'm surprised I haven't got a question about AI at all.
So you mentioned declare. So if somebody has used it, be it creating test cases or something like that, is it just a little disclaimer?
Yeah, like I completely accept that Gen AI is a useful tool, but you have to understand actually how to use it and what the dangers of using it are as well. Because if you're not familiar with it, you can just say, oh, it solves every problem, and it doesn't have any problems. It's really useful. It's a productivity enhancer, but it doesn't do everything, and it introduces perhaps other problems as well. Saying all this is a moving target, but that's no different for computing. In every year I've been involved in computing since I was 15 years old. Computing is a moving field and moves all the time. It's changing continuously. So Gen AI, the buzzword at the moment, in another 2 years it will be some other buzzword. And that's something actually that's really exciting about the field, because you're at the front edge of technology, and it just keeps changing, and it will just keep changing. Read the question survey target requirements. So going back to that specifically, so if you use Gen AI in part of your submission, it's really important to declare it. Okay, what you've used and how you've used it. Be careful to answer questions, and again, read the question as a perfectly important part of things, and again, think about, since you're here, think about what we're looking for. So when you ask the question, think about when I sit down and I look at for. I think one of the questions, without pointing at anybody, somebody was trying to sort of say, should I use this project or that project? Try and think of a project that'll probably answer most of those questions. So if it's a bit more innovative or a bit new, new or shows off characteristics we like, pick that project if that sort of fronts you up a little bit better. If you've been involved in a group project, it's really important that we can sort of segment what part of it is yours. Sometimes we've had two people that have worked on a project or something, or they've been involved in a project in computer science, even so if it's a group project. Make sure to define which parts are yours. And for leaving cert projects, normally, if it's just a run-of-the-mill project that everybody in the class has done, it's nice if you can add your own bit or your own innovation bit to it, and something that perhaps enhances it to the standard thing that every other student did. Yeah.
What would you say matters more when, let's say, if you have multiple projects that you're picking? What would you say matters more in the project that you're picking? Let's say a project that you're more proud of, we'll say, and that you kind of find more interesting. However, you feel like you haven't met all of the goals that you set for yourself in that project, or a project that would be, let's say, where you've achieved more, but you feel like you haven't contributed to as much, or sort of.
Number one, okay, like I'm never going to buy your software, and I don't need something that pushes the barriers a little bit. That's something that's a little bit more interesting, and it doesn't have to tick all the boxes, right? But if it shows me that there's a little bit of this is interesting. This is a little bit of innovation here. This is unique, or this is different. Okay, there's things to do, and the student seems to know how to do it. They're 90% of the way there, rather than handing me a perfectly working but simplistic and here's my software to sort an array of 10 numbers, right? Something that's sort of, but it works perfectly. I would pick number one. Okay, that's what it
doesn't completely work, but it's
it doesn't have to completely work. On the other hand of things, there's got to have to be some reality to it. So some of one of the questions there was, think of a project, that you would do. I'd like people to sort of meet that out. So it's not good to sort of think, I have this great idea for a car that doesn't have wheels that floats. Wouldn't it be brilliant? And I want to see, well, how do you plan to make it float? You know what I mean? Give me some of the reality, the problem-solving bit underneath this, not just I have this idea. Wouldn't it be great if we could, have planes that didn't use fuel? Just so, because you can get really up here, but that's no good, right? It's good if you're up there and actually you have some line about actually this is possible, and I think I can do it this way or do it that way, or I don't know if you get me with what I'm saying there, but you can get too pie in the sky where, that would be great, wouldn't it, if we just had eternal money for everything. But, and this goes back, so links to external sources. So if you've done something, and we love it if you're involved in a young scientist, and we actually have last year's winner of Young Scientist is in our first year class in a month, but you don't have to be that, right? Even if you're involved, it's good, and there's lots of other similar sort of stuff that you're engaged, you're interested in, and you're doing some, particularly in STEM related stuff, and not just a claim. Like I think Gillian said, I'm Munster champion of chess or something. It'd be great if you could put a link in to some web page where that was, in the local paper or something. So that's cool. They do that, and so evidence is nice as well. I picked chess because Gillian had, but there's lots of other things, right? There's all sorts of things that I think we have a champion in Rubik Cube solutions in second year or first year, I can't remember. I can see his face, but yeah. So I think it's the fastest in Ireland at solving Rubik Cube. He's done lots of other things as well, but that's just one of the things. Any questions?
Let's go a quick add-on to the Leaving Cert projects. If you look at it from our perspective, if you're going to use, say, GCG project, an engineering project, just say that we submit that project, everyone else in the country has done that project, and we're going to see 15, 20 projects the same. And what you want to do is be unique to stand out, so that's why you need to add extra content. Think about it from our
But don't shy away from applying. Somebody else, yeah.
Should I link like all the sources to the download the internet?
You can link whatever you want, but understand will only go so far.
Yeah, so not,
So,
shouldn't link, I mean, I could link like every Stack Overflow page and every GitHub gist link. Will we look at all of them?
we definitely won't look at all. Well, you say, yeah. So there's questions I can't answer because when you say I could link all of those, I don't know. So it's not quantifiable. So I can't give you an exact formula, right? All I can give you is a feel of what we're looking for, and you have to go away and curate this, right? And distill whatever you have, and to try and meet as best you can and present yourself in that pitch, and you know. And it's not possible for me to sit down with each one of you and go through exactly what you should or shouldn't do. And part of it is that you have to make those decisions yourself, right? Yeah, so I'm going to leave this out, or I'm going to include this, or I think I should go this way. And that's just as much part of it, nearly as anything else, right? But, you know, it isn't about, oh, just give them loads and loads and loads of stuff and they'll find something. You have to structure it. And like I said, we have limited time. So you're trying to pitch what you can up front. The diamonds should be clear. Don't make us work to find them, and have the evidence underneath if we want to drill down. And there was somebody said something about an English essay. Was it? Somebody can jump at me. I'm really not. I don't care too much about grammar. I want enough grammar to be able to understand what you're saying. But please don't write a English lit essay literature thing. I'm not really interested in that sort of stuff. So it's about what you've done or going to do. So you don't think too hard. You know, obviously get the grammar right, but don't think too hard about the sort of the creativity of your writing. It's a technical brief. Any questions? I think we've come to the end. I think we've come to the end. We're 6 minutes over, which isn't too bad. I'll be around, Stephen will be around, Gillian will be around, Ian will be around for a few minutes. The students are up there, so if you want to grab somebody, you can do afterwards. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to let you all go. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. I hope to see some of your faces next year. So thank you.